Hello and welcome. This is Working Class to World Class. But before we go any further, I do have a little favour of you. If you could hit that follow or subscribe button, then that would be a massive help. Thank you. In this episode, I'm chatting with a really well-known marketing figure. Now, he is not only just a really nice person, but he's an entrepreneur through and through, which was proven when he built his independent agency literally from scratch to become super successful, not only in the UK, but globally. It was then bought by a major group for quite a lot to make his fortune and the fortune of many others. He is living proof that if you have an idea, if you've got a bit of tenacity, but most importantly, if you're willing to do right by the people that work with you, then you've got all the ingredients in place to become super successful. Breaking through the barriers of adversity. I'm Lynn Lester, and this is Working Class to World Class. So welcome, Ian. Thank you for joining me. So I guess you're pretty busy at the moment.
Well, yeah, I am a bit busy. It's not too bad. A few ups and downs, but yeah, keeping out of trouble.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about those ups and downs in a minute. But for everyone tuning in, can you just give people an insight into who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Ian Millner. I was one of the co-founders of a marketing company called Iris. We set the business up 25 years ago, me and some friends, and we grew it globally. We had about 1,000 people, offices in about 17, 18 markets. And now my job is across the company that ended up buying us, Chale Worldwide, and my job is to cut across all of the offices, all of the brands, to make it easier for clients to work with us. So I've been doing that for the last year and a half.
Wow. I mean, so you make it sound so easy. We set up a business, 1,000 people. But I mean, if you just take a step back, the enormity of that, I mean, that's a pretty big deal, isn't it? Even in marketing terms, but in business in general. I mean, to have 1,000 people, that must have felt pretty good.
I don't know. It didn't really happen like that. It just happened as a consequence of how we did it, and we had a very sort of strong view about culture and talent. We were very entrepreneurial and very risk positive. So we were good at following our instincts, and that sort of led us to just setting lots of things up. And we were very we were very people orientated people. So we would always meet people. We'd always get on well, and we always found it easy to attract talent, and because we were open to risk. We were always sort of setting up new ventures and new skill sets, or setting up a new market. So, and I've noticed, over the years that as I've worked with other companies, that actually how we did it is quite unusual, and that most people are not like that at all. That most people are much more driven by the here and the now, and the risks and the costs and things like that. Where we're much more driven by backing people that we like, and backing vision and ideas, and backing energy. And we've also been happy to deal with problems. We've never sort of sat around moaning or looking at each other, or we've been okay to deal with the good and the bad that has come from that culture and that entrepreneurial spirit.
Wow. I mean, I think it's no coincidence, your background, which we're going to talk about in a little second, because exactly what you're saying. We don't moan about it. We just get on with it. We're not frightened to confront the problems head on. And I think, as I say, we're going to interrogate a little bit more, but I reckon, that has got a lot to do with how you were possibly brought up and how you dealt with life in general. Is that a fair thing to say?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, my kids say that I didn't have a childhood, and they say that because I think they're saying that because I'm always moaning at them about how lucky they are, like dads do, But I remember growing up as a kid, I was on my own a lot because my mum and dad were always working. So I would have to, and even from pretty young, so I'd have to look after myself, do things for myself. So I think that self-starting, and I think there's resilience that comes with that, and not being needy and not needing a lot of emotional feedback or support. I think that's probably a factor that I didn't realise was a thing until only now, really, when I'm sort of looking back on it through the lens of how emotional and needy my kids are.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think when you're in it, you don't think about it like that, but it's when you take a step back. So if we do go back then, so where were you brought up and where were you born?
I'm from a place called Buxton in Derbyshire, and it's got a mineral water. It's a Roman spa town. It's really, really cold. It rains a lot. It's not really in the middle of nowhere, but it is quite isolated. And I mean, I enjoyed being there, and I enjoyed my childhood. And my dad was a mechanic, my mum was a hairdresser. They were quite ambitious. They were quite entrepreneurial. They opened up a hotel in Buxton, like 22 bedrooms or something like that,
Wow.
with my grandma and my uncle. But they basically did it, and it was really hard work. And that's why I was on my own quite a lot. Usually somewhere in the hotel, like knocking around doing something. But and I obviously worked at the hotel from a really early age. So my first job was washing pots. So I used to, like, from 12 or something. I don't know if it's legal. I used to wash up, and I'd work in Christmas Day. All this stuff. We didn't really celebrate any of that Christmas Day or anything like that, really. And this is why my kids think I didn't have a childhood. It's because I'm like, Christmas is no big deal, sort of thing in my head. And so I did that, and I did all sorts, like working behind the bar and everything. As I got older, I worked on the front desk, and so I did that up until obviously going away to college, and then obviously getting a job in London.
Wow. So I mean, again, the thing is, I think your kids have got a point, because you would think because you didn't have it, now you'd be the big excited kid. But it sounds to me as if you're like, nah, you just made your peace if it wasn't for you necessarily, because you weren't used to it. And I guess, like, obviously you were talking about your mum and dad being the hairdresser and the mechanic. So let's go back to that time, because obviously it sounds as if they then became entrepreneurial. They then got this hotel, which sounds brilliant. But before that, what was life like? Did you live a life of luxury, or did you get to go holidays?
Definitely not luxury. No, I mean, not luxury at all. I mean, we had holidays. I mean, it would be Torremolinos, or we used to go like camping in the south of France. So yeah, there's nothing luxurious about it, but I guess it was an emerging middle class, life, I suppose. My parents, I mean, they've never had any money. They just always worked. But obviously they had some stature, because if you're running a business in a small town, people look up to you, and it's held in. There is esteem that comes with it. So I think that is a thing for sure. But I mean, the big move, though, I think that was a game changer in my journey, was going what school I went to. And I remember my best friend at primary school was really bright and very sort of driven, and his family were very academic. And he wanted to go to Stockport Grammar School, which is the school his brother went to. And I said, well, so do I then, without knowing anything about it. And I then said to my parents, that's what I wanted to do. And they backed me in doing that. I did the entrance exam and got in, and went, and it's like 20 miles away. It's a real commitment, and I used to have to get the train every morning from like 12 or whatever it was. So really, it took a real commitment to do that, physically, emotionally, logistically, financially. But that probably was the big event that took me out of Buxton and set me on a path that was more into the outside world. And I think that probably is one of the big things that has kind of set me off on this path.
Yeah, that was your break. So did your parents have to pay for that school?
Yeah.
Yes. How did they cope? Because at the time, were they at the hotel at this time, or were they still the mechanic in
Yeah, no, they were
hairdressing?
at the hotel, and that this is what they did brilliantly well is they prioritised that cost investment,
Yeah.
and I'm glad they did, and it's certainly it created opportunities, expectations, more than it's expectations. You're in an environment where the bars are higher and the standards are higher, and the people around you are doing more, and it's infectious. It inspires you to push harder, and also it's not like you're carrying it around with you as a burden, but there's definitely a thing around wanting to make your parents proud and repay them back for their faith, and the cost and all the rest of it that come with it. And that's nothing that they've said to me, but that's certainly how I saw it. So I was motivated to make it work.
Yeah. And so by putting you there, I mean, obviously the theme of this is working class to world class. So it sounds to me as if it was very working class to start. Your parents started doing better, so you started getting more things, obviously, i.e.
Absolutely.
education. So what did they have to sacrifice to put you to this school?
I mean, everything really. I mean, they didn't have any money or anything, so it's yeah. I mean, it's almost impossible to say,
Yeah.
but they did put it. That was the priority. My getting me through school.
Yeah.
So I don't. So I really don't know. But they they didn't have anything. They're not. They're not wealthy people by any stretch of the
Yeah.
imagination.
But it shows you what they put on the education. And actually it's really funny because you remind me of the kids where they are where I grew up is they want to go where your pals are going. So it's not, kids these days are quite, quite in tune with, okay, yeah, when I'm older, I want to do this, particularly a lot of kids in private school. Whereas in our day, you just wanted to go where your mate was going because it was a safety net.
Absolutely.
So I bet you thank your friend now.
Well, yeah, he died as a kid.
Oh
So,
no.
and yeah, he was like super bright, an incredible, like a real prodigious sort of. I mean, he's the sort of kid that is just annoying, really, as well, because he was like really knew it all, very self-confident, really, really equipped for whatever life threw at him, sort of thing. Um, and also had a sort of sense of entitlement as well. And I think I used to have this view where entitlement was like universally bad, and I've sort of come to realize that it isn't really. It's about having higher expectations, um, and what I'm obviously trying to do with my kids is have higher expectations, but make sure that they are self-aware and have EQ and are good with people and are down to earth, and know what it takes to earn money and know what things are worth, and all those sorts of things, so that they get the benefits of the self-confidence, if you like, and the drive and ambition that kind of is fueled by it, without any of the kind of downsides, the arrogance and this sort of lofty disconnection from the truth and the real world. So it's a difficult process, but I feel that even now, 20 odd years into a career, an international career, but I still sort of can't believe that it's happened, and I still sometimes feel like a bit of an imposter and feel I got a bit lucky, and and that's a lack of self-confidence, and that is I mean, I guess some of it's personality, but some of it is part of the nature of my upbringing, and my family, and my dad's family, they're all from a small village in Derbyshire called Dove Holes. It's a quarry village, and most of his brothers all still live there. My mum with Council House in Buxton, and you know, they're all, you know, they're all such good quality people, but they've never left the town or the village that they're from. And you know, the big thing that happened to me was breaking with the place that I'm from, and that whilst I, you know, do have self-doubt, I think the desire to do well and desire to make something of yourself, make something of the situation and you have, and the opportunities you've been given has been really motivating. So, you know, I really want to generationally pass some of that on to my kids, provided that, you know, they can, you know, see the downsides of the gifts that they've had through their education.
Absolutely. I think it's like seeing the good in things, but never ever taking it for granted and knowing you have to work at it. So yeah, they might be privileged now, but they don't have the silver spoon. They have to work and work hard. And one thing that you did touch on, which it would be amiss of me not to ask, really, is, you know, your best friend who you followed to school and then he sadly passed away. Were you still friends at the time? And if so, like, how did that moment in your life really impact you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think when I think I'd just moved down to London, so it must be like early 20s when it happened. And when we both went to Stockport Grammar, we did start to drift apart, and that was because his path was very academic and you know,
Yeah.
very bright. I was very much middle of the road, if that, you know, and just doing my best to get through, really. And also I was much more into sport in my school, which affected, you know, who we hung around with and our friendship. But I still see him as a strong influence in my life and as a friend, and I often wonder what would it be like now to just, you know, catch up. What would it be like? And I think it would be really good. And I was saying this really recently to my wife about how much of a role he played in my life, because you know, of course, none of my family went to private school before I did, and no one went to university or anything like that. So much of my life is linked to that moment when he said he was going to this school, and you know, I said I'm going too then. So you know, it's quite odd, and I've only kind of come to realize that, you know, later on in life.
Yeah, it just shows you, doesn't it? It's almost a bit like serendipity, isn't it? Because it's not as if that was the ambition of the family that you go there. It was all around what your pal wanted to do, as we say. So I guess, you know, when you went to this private school, did you fit in, and were you academic?
Well, I wasn't academic, but I was good at getting through. I was good at gaming the system, and so that meant I was pretty hit and miss. So I could be amazing one year and utterly rubbish another year, and it was driven by the teachers. So if I liked the teacher, I would do really well, and I was able to do close to the top of the class level performance, almost anything. And then if I didn't get on with the teacher, I was like rubbish, like, you know, bottom of the table sort of thing. So it was quite an odd thing, really. But so I worked, I tried hard, and I thought about what I was doing, and I would always think through, what have I got to do to get through, you know, O levels, and what have I got to do to get through to the sixth form, and it was like that in university as well. So I was good at just thinking through a plan to get through, and I think that's different to being academic. But I think I fitted in because of just, I mean, sport, big factor. You know, sport was the sort of backbone of my personality, life, socializing, and all the rest of it. And because of sport, it's very easy to look like you fit in, and you know it's very sort of mainstream. So and it builds a profile. So yeah, I think I did fit in, but yeah, definitely not academic.
You peeled it off, so you became a hustler from a young age.
Yeah.
Which carries you through in the advertising world, absolutely. And so for you, when you ended up leaving school, then did you leave with qualifications, and then how did the next step happen into like college or uni?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I got O levels and A levels, and then got into Liverpool University. And again, I obviously didn't know much about universities or where to go or what to do or any of that really. There wasn't like a family setup that knew all about it because there was a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. It was, and I liked sport, so I thought, right, I'm going to do sports science. So I ended up doing PE and movement science at Liverpool University, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I probably got into my second year, and then I thought, hang on a minute, where's this going? Oh, not really anywhere. So I then started to think what things do I like, and what does make me tick. And I started to the bits of it, the bits of my course that I really liked were all about psychology. Why do people do what they do? Social psychology, personality, mood, all these sorts of things. So I got really into those topics and how much of a role they play in affecting, your judgment, and your performance. And I then started studying marketing. I went to some career lectures. There was someone from Mars Pet Food came and did a careers lecture that I went to, and I just found it really interesting. And from there on, I thought, that's it. That's what I want to do. And I in my final year, I tried to get into marketing jobs, both on the client side and the agency side, and couldn't because I didn't have a story to tell. I didn't have the right profile really. So I then went to see the bank manager, and I got a loan to fund a postgraduate diploma in marketing at Liverpool Business School. So I stayed on for a year to do that, and then I found that really interesting, and I it's not like I came alive. That sounds a bit sort of dramatic, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and from there it was a lot easier to get involved in discussions about roles and all the rest of it. And I applied to all the big agencies, and I think I ticked the wrong box in the application form. So the agency group at the time was D&B&B, and it was like, do you like advertising or do you like promotional marketing with the boxes? And I go, I like them both, but I quite like the sound of promotional marketing. So I ticked the box. So I found myself at IMP, which was a really successful below the line agency at the time, and full of pace setters. That gave birth to a lot of agencies around like VCCP, and a lot of the people went off to Howell Henry, and there was like a real energy and edge about it. It was full of very entrepreneurial people, and I think that was the next big sort of moment in my life where, hang on a second, that's going to shape me now as a person and as a professional, because of the expectations that came with it, that came from that culture. And we were there for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or something, and I'd become the new business director. And then me and the guy that started with me on the same day, we were in the same interview process. It was like Dragon's Den before Dragon's Den was invented, sort of thing. And me and this guy called Stuart Shanley, there was me and 2 other people. That was our pitch team, our project team, and we were given this brief one afternoon, and then we had to pitch in the boardroom the following day, sort of thing. And we were given some pens and some acetate slides, sort of thing. And we came up with this really good idea that we then pitched, and it was on Croft Original. And and they gave a job to me and Stewie, so we started on the same day as well. And I think they then ended up running the idea we pitched for the client, so it was like pretty cool. Anyway, a few years down the track, one thing led to another, and Stewie and I were in the pub talking about the potential for a startup called, well, it wasn't called anything at the time, but then became Iris, and we got worked with people that we liked and knew well and trusted, and that became the nucleus of our little startup.
That's amazing. I mean, it must be as well from your mum and dad's entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, is where you kind of got it, where you thought, well, you can take a calculated risk if you kind of know what you're doing. So did they help you and offer advice?
Not really. I mean, yeah, I think it was a very busy time. I was in London, and they were obviously still in Buxton. So, and obviously it was before. We've got so much connectivity now, haven't we? WhatsApp and phones, mobile phones, and all that.
Yeah.
So we didn't. It wasn't like we weren't talking. It's just that it's a lot harder. It was a lot harder then to interact.
God, I mean, and see, the thing is, when you come up with Iris, look, so what does it mean? What's the sentiment behind it?
Well, I mean, it's the eye, and it's about the sort of muscle, if you like, that responds first to change. So it was about looking into the future and seeing what's about to happen and being able to respond to it. And we didn't want to call it, after all, we didn't want initials or initials or anything like that, because we thought that was vain and limiting, and we wanted it to be something for everybody, and like a not quite a democracy, but certainly a cooperative, where it was very much about people, and it was about inspiring others, and I mean later on in life, I remember I visited Irish Deli, and the managing director at the end of it, some presentation I was giving, said, "Oh yeah, it's really good. The name Iris, isn't it? You must have spent ages on it." I said, "Oh, not really." And she goes, "Oh," she was going, "Oh, what does it mean?" Like, I don't know really. It doesn't really mean anything. And I said the thing around the eye, because that was where we came from. He says, no. Iris, it's the Greek goddess of communication. Or specifically communication to the gods. And I said, I can't believe that. So I obviously Googled it immediately, and it's like, I can't believe it. It's like, there it is. That's exactly. I wish I knew this before. But yeah, that's what a bonus. You know what I mean? It could have meant anything, but how helpful.
That's amazing. I mean, God, it's like hitting the jackpot, isn't it? So now you need to change your marketing strategy.
I wish we had.
Claim it as yours.
Yeah.
And so, see, the thing is, like, if you can imagine, obviously, it sounds like you've had a really nice journey on the lead up to this. But like, see, when you start a company from nothing and you've not really done it before, like, how did you get it right straight away, or how did you learn to do it? I mean, you've built it into something like an empire. How did you get there when you kind of just thought, "Oh, I've got a great idea. Yeah, what's next?"
I mean, the first few. I mean, I think you need to get lucky, with the first few years. I mean, we got off to such a flyer because our founding client was Ericsson, or Sony Ericsson, and this was before the iPhone, and we had like 25% market share, and they were growing so quickly and so dynamic. So that was incredible for us, because it just gave us so much momentum, and when it's just all growth, then it's very easy to learn. You know what I mean? And the mistakes you make are not that bad. You know what I mean? Because you just know that there's always such a strong pipeline of amazing projects, and also the area that we were in, mobile phones, is attractive to other clients as well. So that was lucky, and then from there you then start to have to think, where is this going though, and what are we, and why are we here, and what's our place in the market. So we then did have to then start to think, what's the roadmap here, and how do we make this work, and how do we manage it, and all the rest of it. And then that's when you start to sort of get into thinking about the structure of the company. You think about your product roadmap, also your routes to market, and that then leads you into innovation and brand extensions, and it also leads you into M&A, and it also leads you into internationalizing. So all of these things that just sort of happened, once we got through the first 2 or 3 years of incredible, just organic momentum linked to our founding client.
And do you always sort of take the principle, at the heart, you are working class, right? So as you grew up, as you say, your parents gave everything to send you into this private education mode. So do you think you took those principles with you when you started running this business?
I think so, because we worked really hard. We didn't expect anything from anyone. We were very good with people. We were very fair. We certainly early days. I mean, we shared equity with lots of people. So I must have had 50 or so shareholders, all in the company, because we thought that was fair. It's not about us and our family wealth. It's about doing what is right and appropriate, and recognizing that that will create a different sort of style of company. And so that was very sort of ideological. And Stuart, my founding partner, he also had those views. He was also similar background, and in no way egotistical or anything like that, and very strong work ethic. So that harmony, if you like, around the values and the principles was a big red thread, if you like, for the Iris journey. I mean, especially in the first sort of 10, 12 years, that was a really important part of it.
Geez, what a journey. And, obviously you're doing this, and then up the road, your parents are there, I imagine. Were they really proud?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Did they ever tell you they were proud?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't need it. It goes back to one of the things I think I got from their work life was I was on my own a lot. So I don't need a lot of hair combing and, showering with petals or whatever. I don't need that. In fact, I hate attention, and I hate people telling me, positive things like that, really. I find it really uncomfortable. But I'm absolutely certain they are they're proud, and I'm glad, and that was a big agent in shaping my motivations and decisions.
Yeah. And I mean, the one thing you've sort of talked about a couple of times is this being left alone as a kid, and not in a neglect way, just obviously they were busy, they were doing other things. So I understand the premise of that. What age were you? Because I know you were saying you were about 11 when you started working, 11, 12. And so what age were you when you were kind of having to sort of, I guess, keep yourself occupied?
Quite young. I'm not sure. I mean, it was primary school age. It was pretty young. Certainly, I wouldn't do that to my kids.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming them, but don't call social services or anything. But yeah, it was pretty young. It was pretty young.
Because I guess, we talk about things that happen in our life. I mean, I don't know what you know of mine. So when by the time I was 19, I had lost a brother and my mom and my dad. And I think by that point, as well, it was horrible. Obviously, it's still horrible, but it does mold you, because you can't change history. It's happened. So because of those things, I actually think as an adult, I benefit from it, as perverse as that may sound. So, but I guess for you, it's probably, as you said, it's similar. You don't need the gratification and people saying you're amazing. And if anything, it's like, please stop doing that. I don't need it. But do you think it also drives you in a positive way?
I I think it does. I think it does because it gives you a much clearer view around who you are. You don't have any of the noise. You know, you can be much more driven by what you know about yourself, what you see around the world, what you see as opportunities, what your motivations are and your values are, and you don't have any of the distortive influence, which is to do with well, you're influenced by people around you, aren't you? Just naturally, and we are as humans, and often people it creates an internal bias. So I don't feel like I've had that, and it gives me more clarity. It makes me more determined. It makes me more resilient, I think, as a result. And I think that is a big thing in life, and certainly in business, it's a massive thing. You know, a lot of people have quite short-term, careers. There's a few years there, a few years there, and I've not done that at all. Apart from, I had a few years at IMP, which I really enjoyed, and then I've done 20 odd years here. So
yeah, it's similar. I've been at the drum for 20 years, and and it's part of it. Sometimes let's sit back and think, am I just crazy? Am I a crazy person? But it's because I love it, and also because I live in Scotland. So for me, it's about, I feel gratitude every day because I think I'm really lucky. What I do, I love what I do. I get to travel the world, get to do all these things that so many people, so many of my friends could never dream of. And it probably is similar to you because yes, when you went to the private school, perhaps, but I bet your mates when you were primary school, I don't know what they're doing to this day, but I imagine you've probably pipped them. I imagine you're doing pretty well in comparison.
Oh, I don't know. But I think it's a really good point, that. And the other thing is, like, I think you probably identify with the drum, and there's this very strong personalities there, very charismatic, talented people, strong founder mentality. So there'll be a whole load of factors. I think linked to your journey that are really important, and I think that's really important part of mine too. You work best with the people that you like, are inspired by, stretch you, bring out your best, and you feel comfortable and safe around. So there's loads of things within that, I think, that come with this.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of people though, you do get a lot of fisticuffs as well, so it's not always a bed of roses, but that's life for you. And so it's because I'm quite a strong personality as well. So when you look at your journey, right? So say if you take a step back, obviously your kids at the moment are in a really good position, right? Because they've got you're an entrepreneur, and they don't take it for granted, but they've got a chance in life that maybe other kids don't have. So, when you were building up, you obviously realized you couldn't get into marketing because you didn't know it. So you had to go and do something about that. So if you get any advice that you would give to someone that's maybe they don't really have anything going for them, but they want to make a career and they want to just be given a bit of a chance, is there any kind of hints and tips you might give?
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds ridiculous, but you got to start with knowing yourself and knowing what it is that you really like, you're really passionate about. That will normally be a good guide for you around what you should or shouldn't do, or what you should pursue. There's definitely, I mean, life is long, if you're lucky. So go for your passions. It's worth it because you'll be better at it. You'll probably earn more money doing it, and even if you don't earn more money, you'll get more self-esteem and positivity from it. You'll be a better person. You'll have a happier life. I think that's the most important thing. And then the second thing is just about, just never give up. You've got to go. And this is one of the things. It's like because of spending a lot of time on my own as a kid, and then because of that, knowing my own mind, being a self-starter. When I say I'm going to do something, I really do it, and I don't give up. And it's not that I know there are people that say I'm stubborn. I don't think I'm stubborn at all. I just think when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I just see it differently. You know what I mean? And I think if people can just find that and find that depth of emotion, of motivation, that they will keep going, because everything is difficult. In everything, you're gonna get setbacks. Most often, you're gonna hear no more than you say yeah. And if you don't do this for you, no one's going to do it for you, and it's worth it. So I think, I don't know, that's a bit of a long ramble-a-thon around, but that is what I would say. You know, you're going to get setbacks. This is the test. If you really want something and this is right for you, deal with the setbacks. It'll be worth it in the end.
Yeah, it's a thick skin, isn't it? It's always just, I remember being wee and my mum would say things to me like, say I fail, she'd be like, get up, right, stop crying, you're fine. And it was properly like, just stop it. And that was a way to nip it in the bud. And I was like, oh, or it used to be if I cried, it'd be like, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. I was like, oh, okay. So for me, it was never pity. And then, you know, when my family died like that, for me, I was like you, I didn't like the attention. I didn't like the pity party. I didn't like people to, it made me more awkward, you know, people being pitiful. I absolutely hated it, although I knew they meant well, so I appreciated it, but also was a bit. And so for me, it was always about, you know, from the age of 19, you either sink or swim now. You either can pay your rent or you can't. So it's up to you never to lose a job, to be loyal. So, and I think, you know, coming from our backgrounds, it's a very gritty kind of mentality. Like, nobody's going to do this for you. You have to do it for yourself. Yes. I think where people maybe get a bit stumbled is where they don't know where to turn sometimes. So it's like they might have the mentality, but it's thinking outside the box as well. So Dave Trott was talking about, you know, how he would, you know, doggedly go after certain jobs, and it's just he would try different ways, different creative ways to get in the door. So I think it's for people to just think a wee bit differently. And even people that are in their middle careers just now, you know, it's like you don't have to just kind of plod along and do the same thing. Just think about things differently, how you approach a pitch, how you know, pitch yourself for a job. So I think all of that is absolute sound advice. And I think it doesn't matter where you're from, you can still do all of those things you've said.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic, and it's so good to hear you talk like that, and in the context of your own challenges and your journey. And I think, and this is where the problem with stubborn comes for me. I think it is right to be determined and motivated and ambitious, but it's also right to have your eyes open and be open-minded, because opportunities are always, you know, buzzing around you, and being prepared to change your course, to learn from things that happen to you, to learn from other people, to then pick the best bits of those as you go through life. I think that's important, and that's why I think stubborn requires rebranding, really, you know, because providing, you know, that resilience and determination is coupled with open-mindedness and flexibility and vision. I think then you know you've got a kind of winning combination.
Do you know, it's so funny you should say that. You actually touched a nerve there with something that rings true for me. So because when my parents died, I was, by the time they had both gone, I was 19, and from that day it was me on my own, right? So for me it was, and I have got siblings as well who are amazing, but you know, you're kind of independent, and they weren't rich to look after me or whatever. But from that day it was always about, I didn't like ever getting told what to do, because the two people that could tell me what to do weren't there anymore. So I can take instruction well, I can follow a plan, I can follow the strategy. I friggin' hate getting told what to do, depending on how it happens. So not given direction, that's different. But you get what I mean. There is a difference. I don't like getting told I will do this. I'm like, well, I won't really.
That's so interesting, because like literally the best way to get the worst out of me is to tell me what to do. And you're right, there is a difference. Like it sounds similar, but it's not. So a direction, that's different. That's like, this is where we're going, a vision or mission or whatever it is. This is why we need to do something. But when you get into like micromanagement and task by task instruction, I just cannot deal with that. I don't know why or how, but it's I can feel the emotions brewing within me, and it's not that I freeze, but it's like I just can't do it. I just don't like it.
Yeah, totally. Honestly, I even if people listen to this or watching are like, I don't get it. I 100% get what you mean. So, we talk about your success and all these things, but is there anything, if you're looking back, I mean, we always say, never live with regrets and whatever, but is there anything that you think, I wish had I had my time again, I would have done this a bit differently, or obviously it worked out for the best now, but at the time?
Honestly, no. I mean, we've had loads of thrills and spills. There are obviously things that could have gone differently, that could have gone better. And there are things I've done that were just mistakes. But some of that's linked to decisions around people and relationships between us and as founders. Some of that's like, we had a lot of shareholders, and we didn't need so many. If we'd have had 25 partners, that's probably a better balance, would be a bit fairer. But I can't grumble. I really can't. It's like I've got no bitterness or regrets or anything like that. Just lots of positivity and learnings, and so yeah, not really.
Not really. Well, do you know what? I have to say this. I've really, really enjoyed this because, what I and Ian, I don't really know you that well. Like our paths have crossed, but we've never really talked like this. But for me, what I can clearly see about you is like, I think you're a really good person. I can sense that a mile away. And I know you hate people saying nice things, so I'm just going to make you awkward for 30 seconds. But I think you're a good person. I think you've obviously leaded quite an interesting life in terms of your upbringing, from being alone as a kid to having this amazing private school opportunity. But I don't think that defines you, actually. I think that just opened your mind in different ways. And I actually think, from what I can see, and actually this is a message to lots of people, just be a good person, because it comes back in abundance. And I believe in karma. And I think a lot of your success it's not luck, it's about grit, determination, but I actually think a lot of it is karma as well, because what goes around comes around. And thank you.
I believe that. I really believe that. And I think karma is a process that you are part of. You know what I mean? It's not just a thing. It's you make it. You make that. And there are so many things that have happened to me, particularly in the latter part of my career, where it's linked to something I did positively 10 years earlier, and it's like, oh my God. And it is karma, but you are part of that process,
You are indeed. And another man is, I don't know if you know him, Phil Jones. I think he lives a life of karma. Very good person, and he gets lots of good things coming back. So, well, I'm going to say it to you, although they might not have told you, I am pretty damn sure your parents are very proud. So, thank you so much, and thanks for inspiring so many people.
Thanks for having me.